But in fact, our brain keeps growing all the way pretty much until we die. If there's some problems in our brain, it's trying to divert around it to create new neural pathways. And you want to keep your brain still active and firing. And learning something new is one of the best ways to keep your brain super on it, thriving.
Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Life podcast. Today, I am very excited to have an author. She has written a bunch of books, I think several at this point. The one that we are going to be probably talking the most about today is called Tough Broad: From Boogie Boarding to Wing Walking, How Outdoor Adventure Improves Our Lives as We Age. And this is a deeply researched exploration into the science and psychology of the outdoors and our place in it as we age. We have so much good stuff to talk about here. And thank you so much for joining us, Caroline.
Oh, I'm excited, Talor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, let's start with a little bit of background about your story and kind of how you got into the work that you're doing today, the books that you're writing.
I was not always a writer. I had a career as a firefighter. I was a San Francisco firefighter for many years. I was like the 14th woman into the fire department back in the late 80s.
Nice.
And there were 1,500 men. So it was an incredible experience for me. And it made me honestly a better person all around that work. When I retired, I didn't know what to do with myself. So I began to write. And I'd already written a memoir about being a firefighter. And so I found myself, honestly, on my seventh book, published book. And didn't really have a brand, but I decided that this book was going to be a quest. Usually I write a book and I know where I'm going, but for this one, I was 55. I'm 62 now, but I was 55 and I was wondering what my own later phase of life was going to be. I'd always been an adventurer. I have done things from paragliding to flying gyrocopters to surfing to going around the world doing whitewater rivers. And I looked around and it looked like I was supposed to be pulling back on life now that I was almost 60. So I didn't really want to do that. And I decided to go on a quest to find out about aging and this final stage and what was really going to be good for me.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Man, I'm trying to think of this book that I read many years ago as well that really reframed my mindset around it, because it's like, as you get older, you start, and people mean well, but you go to a little get together and it was, oh, I'm getting so old and I'm so sore and I'm so this and I'm so that. And I read a book, I think it was called Aging or Ageless: How to Rise Like a Phoenix from the Myth of Aging, he said. And this guy talked about how he broke powerlifting records at for his age group at like age 65 or something like that. And it was really inspiring. And it started with actually, it helped me become aware of this negative talk and these limiting beliefs about, oh, I'm getting older, I can't do this. And it really helped me reframe like, oh, wow, it is possible. So I love hearing this part of your story and would love to learn more about what you found.
Well, the interesting thing was, first of all, I remember specifically I was surfing in this big winter swell and I looked around and there was no women my age out there. And I'm not a good surfer. I'm not even trying to be coy. I wish I was a good surfer. I would tell you if I was, and I'm not. And I looked around and it was all men my age and a lot older. And I knew there were a lot of women who could handle this big, heavy swell much better than me. I'm a good paddler, I will say, but and I started to wonder, why aren't women out here? I saw men my age and older, but not women. And it's not that I hadn't been aware of this toxic messaging that you're talking about, but it's really, really hard for women. And once I started really paying attention, I realized all the messaging that we get from the media or younger people or our own selves about how the aging process sucks. And that's really hard on your confidence. So I'm sure it's the same for men. This book is called Tough Broad, but it really could be tough broad and tough dudes because it is men will get a lot out of this research as well. But that day on the surf really set me on a path to wondering if I was doing the right thing by being out there, uh, because I wanted to stay out there like those men. What I realized, Talora, which you'll find really interesting, almost right away in my research, came upon something that really gobsmacked me. Really, it changed everything, actually, which is the science that says the way we look at our own aging predicts how well we age. So I
Mm.
think people know an optimistic outlook is really important for your happiness and longevity. No, very specifically, it's how we look at our own aging predicts how well we age. And the studies show that those who have a negative view of their own aging will experience cardiac events earlier, cognitive decline earlier, and if you have an optimistic view about your aging journey, you think that your aging journey is going to be full of more adventure and more opportunity and more exploration, then you are not only happier and healthier, you live 7.5 years longer.
Wow. That is incredible.
Well,
How do
so here,
people, if someone's listening right now, I think many people may not even realize that they're talking negatively or that they're looking at this topic negatively. What would be something that someone who is looking at it negatively would say or think compared to someone who's looking at it positively? How would they kind of be looking at it? Like, what are some of the things they would say to themselves, you think?
I mean, I look deeply into this, and as a woman myself, I see the self talk that we do as a result of the information that we're given, or even just the cultural messages, which is that I am going to be frailer. My bones are going to start breaking, and I'm certainly going to be on a cognitive decline. I should be pulling back on my activities. I should be, and culturally, I am less relevant. Like people, I am no longer of reproductive age, so I'm not giving children. I might have changed. My sexual desirability has changed a lot. I'm possibly retired. Now I'm not even supposedly contributing to society, supposedly. So all this is a weight that we carry, whether we're actually saying it out loud or not. It's a weight that we carry, and you will start to see it in your own life. It's less what you say, it's the way your life looks. If your life is starting to look like very you're stopping things that you used to enjoy, you're not learning new things, you're not challenging yourself physically, you're not opening up, that is, I think, then you know that you are sort of reacting to messages that are, first of all, patently false, but definitely very powerful.
Yeah, that's so good, especially because I literally have as one of my goals for this year, stop talking negatively about, like, because like last year I got injured a few times trying to push myself to like a limit or whatever, but doing it in a stupid way or whatever the case may be. Anyway, and so I kind of got into this thing like where I was talking about it with friends, like, oh yeah, I keep getting hurt or or whatever, and it was just kind of the story, and then like someone said to me, is like, why are you always getting hurt? You're not that old, something like that. And I was like, yeah, like, I'm like, that's true. And it's like, I need to stop talking this way. I need to change the way I'm talking. And so like literally one of my goals for this year is like, don't say anything negative to yourself about that, and expect, like, there's no reason for me not to be healthy and get through this whole year, without any injuries while still pushing myself physically to a good point. So I just absolutely love this.
Well, as a woman, I actually do feel on a very real level that physically things are really coming together when I hit 60. Believe it or not, like that's the time when I'm supposed to be falling apart. But I'm post menopausal, so perimenopause, which you probably don't have any experience with, definitely not personally, but all around us, women between 45 and 57 are going through this really tumultuous hormonal and physical change. And when that's over, we're kind of at our best selves.
Mm.
And I think so this book is really a rallying cry, like, hey, don't slow down now, man. You're past all the tough stuff. You really are. I mean, okay, I want to make, obviously there, you know, I hope everybody is in, good financial situations and health situations. There are, of course, any time, but this can happen at any time where you can be financially unstable and you can lose your health at any time. And so, but in general, for those of us who are lucky enough to, in general, just arrive here, mostly healthy, this is an incredible time. So to say, "Uh-oh, I better pull back," is such a waste. And so what I found is this toxic messaging is so powerful that, just like saying I think it's great not to talk about aging. Whenever somebody else says something like, "Oh, it's my birthday, I'm so sad," I'm like, "Are you kidding? Getting older rocks."
Right.
Like, it is all our experience, all our wisdom, all our physical, like, muscle memory. There's so much that is intersecting at this moment. And so, I do counter that kind of talk, and I never fall into it anymore. But more than that, I think the messaging is so much more insidious than some, positive talk can kill. So this is where going outside is so powerful, especially for women,
Mm-hmm.
because the messages are telling us that we're weak, we're not smart cognitively anymore. Things are just, be cautious. But when you go outside, that upends all those myths. So, for instance, I went and interviewed these women who boogie board together in San Diego, and one of the women said, "You know, the thing about going into this ocean is that it's huge, it's cold, it tumbles me around. We get in the water when no one else will, and I'm 62 years old, and I'm doing this." And I saw that the fact that she was just getting in the water and playing in the waves was upending those expectations that she and others had of her at that age.
Yes.
And that was a powerful messaging that got so inside her just body, because she was embodying this, 3 times a week, this adventurous spirit, where you couldn't possibly say she was weak, mentally deficient and boring. You couldn't, because there she was doing things that people were like, "Wow, you go in the water at, it's
Yes.
freezing, it's windy." And I saw that over and over again with the women that I interviewed. When they picked up an outdoor activity, it upended these expectations that they had of their aging process. And it gave them this powerful, mental, hurrah that they were doing this.
Yeah. Is any activity, obviously any activity is better than no activity at all, but you seems you specifically are focusing on outdoors. Do you have any more kind of reasons why specifically outdoors and not just, going to Pilates class or something?
Well, Pilates class is great,
Yeah.
and going to the gym is great. But here's why I think the outdoors is the most powerful tool for a positive view, for your aging journey. And that is because during my research, I saw that there's definitely 4 pillars of healthy aging. And these are the ones that I read the most often. They are: you have to have community, you have to have novelty, you have to have purpose, and you have to have your health. And the final thing that I add is you have to have a positive view of your own aging journey. So with those 5 things, your aging journey is going to be full of exploration and adventure. And I didn't find anything that hit all those 5 things at once. Yes, you can go to the gym and you can get some community, and you can get some, obviously, physical health, or you could get a book club and you'll have novelty and community. I mean, there's all these definite things that you shouldn't be cutting out. But when you go outside, it hits all 5 of those pillars constantly,
Mm-hmm.
on a subconscious level, on a very conscious level. And that's why it's so powerful, especially that last one, a positive view of your own aging journey, just because it upends all those myths by showing you that you are actually powerful physically, powerful mentally, powerful psychologically.
Yes, yes, I absolutely love that. And by the way, we've had a lot of holistic health nutritionists, doctors, people like that on the show before. And a couple of them basically swear by the fact of like being outdoors and getting sunlight every day. And, again, being around, people talk about the ocean being an incredible thing just for your body and healing and energy and everything else as well. So there's certainly that part of it as well. But yeah, you mentioned a lot of other things around the psychology behind being outdoors and just, yeah, talk a little bit more about the psychology there.
I mean, I want I just again and again saw that. So another person that I interviewed was a woman who had never. She was actually, I had never met anyone who had less outdoor experience. She grew up in India. She said she played badminton and that was it. And then she came to the United States, and the limits of her exercise outdoors was walking to lunch with her coworkers. Then she came to California and she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Hey, you got to change some of these numbers, your weight, your sugars, your blood pressure." Um, and the doctor said, "I know you have a pool at your little condominium where you live. I think you should swim." And she said, "Well, I don't know how to swim." And the doctor said, "Well, just take swim lessons." And she was 68, and so, but she had this adventurous spirit, even though it had never been applied to the outdoors. And she went and she took swimming lessons and she learned to swim. And so I went and swam with her, and she doesn't swim, with the sort of technical perfection that someone who's been swimming a long time, but she swims with joy.
Mm.
And she told me that that all her numbers changed, and people told her that she looked more confident. But the really powerful thing that struck me was that she said, as she thought, "Oh, I can swim. I wonder what else I can do." And thus began this journey of like opening up her life, just at a time where you would be thinking that she would start really kind of narrowing it down. And she began to walk in the hills and do all these other things. And I did see that over and over again too.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. For people that want to develop this positive psychological view, I think one thing is you just mentioned is actually taking an action step and doing something that you didn't think you could do, right? I remember when I hadn't played soccer for 20 years and I was like, how can I start playing soccer now? These guys have all, and then I just started and then I just played and then, and it was great. And so I think that's one way is taking action, but also it's like the self-talk and like you mentioned, having a positive outlook of kind of yourself and of the aging process. Is there any tips or tricks there for how people can get to change that psychology a little bit?
Well, that's what I'm saying
Yeah.
is it's very hard to just sort of say, like you're doing homework, like I'm going to change my psychology. It just, there's so much messaging that is so subconscious that I just don't think what you need to do is submerge yourself and be that thing that you're trying to tell yourself to be. And I think when you go outside, you can't help but be that. I interviewed someone that walks a lot. And that doesn't seem like a big adventure, but so just to circle to the outside stuff, just going outside itself is they've shown as your, what did you call them, health people,
Like holistic health practitioners. Yeah.
right, like they don't, but they might not have the research, but I looked into the research, and there's things like the chemicals from trees lowers our blood pressure. Birdsong, if you hear birdsong, that tells us the primal part of our brain that there's no predators about, and so that is relaxing and mentally calming. In a lot of other countries, they actually put aside parks so that their citizens can take guided walks because they understand how stressed people are becoming. And so it's like a guided walk, and it's very simple. Just walk here, sit on this bench, look at this lake. I mean, it's just a suggestive walk, and it's their taxpayer money pays for this because they understand. They have the power trail, and I think it's Norway. It's one of the Scandinavian countries where, again, there's a trail that you walk, and it imbues you with a lot of mental health because of the things, because just being in nature does this. There's a study that shows that the soft sort of rounded shapes of nature, they actually match well with our retinal structure. So absorbing information in nature is not stressful for our brain. It doesn't take up a lot of space. Whereas if you're out in an urban environment, there's a lot of hard architectural edges, lots of hard sunlight, lots of loud noises. There's a lot of filtering that the brain has to do. And so they've shown that if you take a walk in just as green a space as possible, the greener the better, the more wilderness the better. But sometimes we don't have access to that. Your mental health improves radically. So how did I get on that? Man, I get so excited about this. I start pivoting and then I'm gone.
Oh, this is great stuff. We were talking about changing our psychology around aging.
Just being out. So this is why the outdoors is so powerful. It's not homework. You just go outside and embody it. Just be there, be yourself, be who you are. And the magic of, and it's the science too, of Mother Nature will start healing you and helping you. But the mere physical activity of movement helps. So all that, so you don't have to do what I did was, I didn't actually base jump. That is the one thing I did not do because my family was like, nope, you are way too accident prone. But I did learn to fly a gyrocopter, or I went, sea kayaking. I went on a base jumping adventure. I was just ground crew. You don't have to do the big burly stuff. If it suits you, do it. But if it doesn't, I also interviewed a bird watcher. I was interested in how we adapt as we age to being outside, because people are like, oh, I can't go outside. I'm, this knee hurts. I have this back issue. Well, I interviewed a woman named Virginia Rose, who's in a wheelchair, and she goes bird watching. And so I knew that if Virginia could get outside, most of us can get outside. Almost all of us can get outside. And while I was, so we went on a bird watching. It was actually a bird-a-thon. So we ended up walking and wheeling. There were a lot of people in wheelchairs, and there were some walking people. What did they call us? Walkers. Anyway, we did 6 miles. So you don't have to do that either. I interviewed one of the bird watchers, and he had a very, very aggressive form of MS, and he was 30 something. And he said that he thought he was just bound to be inside his house for the rest of his life. And then he started getting interested in birds. So he started watching them from his kitchen window. But he gradually then went out onto his patio. Then he started going out in his backyard. And then the power of birds pulled him, and he began going out on trails until he was on this 6-mile bird-a-thon with me.
Amazing.
So, he could have stayed on his patio also and gotten the benefits of being outside. But of course, the more you do, the better. But it's not, that's, I guess, the beauty of outside is that, you're just sort of imbued with this positive outlook as you engage with it. You don't have to make yourself have one.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And there have been, I don't know. I remember years ago hearing about, like, if you actually go out into an open field or like look up to the sky, you will literally be more open compared to, for example, if you're looking at your phone where you're like tunnel vision, and not getting any of that. And so, for me, it's very important. I try to get morning sunlight every morning and go outside and look up to the sky and kind of get this openness, because it's almost like we're trapped indoors most of our days, unless you make a real effort to go out. And I can just feel, think about the difference. You're sitting like on a couch, hunched over, looking at a phone versus outside, open sky, and kind of just literally your brain and your mind is more open, not to mention all the benefits of the sunlight and the greenery and everything else that you're getting. So I think it's incredible.
Well, actually, you've hit on a chapter that I wrote about, which is this concept of awe. So awe is something that we usually associate with religious experiences, but in fact, it's been very much studied in the past, like 5 years, 10 years. And basically, awe is that feeling you get in the face of something sort of more powerful, mysterious, a little bit of dread that you feel, a little bit of fear, this sort of sense that you're smaller. It's what you get when you have a religious experience, but also if you go out, like you said, and look at the night sky. So it's not just that it's open, it's that you're actually feeling this sense of awe. And they've shown that awe lowers your blood pressure. It lowers anxiety and depression, and it makes you feel more connected to other people. And they've done studies that some of which were weird, like they did a study where you're in the redwoods, and a scientist disguised as a person interested in the redwoods would just drop a pen, and the people around them were much more likely to pick it up because they were in the redwoods than pens that were dropped, at another place. And they connected that to this feeling of awe. And the cool thing, and so the reason I wrote about awe is because going outside is like an automatic awe trigger. So much is awe inspiring outside: the sky, a big tree, a beautiful bird, a tiny insect, views, and that has a profound change on us. The really cool thing is that they did a study here in San Francisco where they took people between the ages of 60 and 80, and they asked them to go on a walk. And the only instruction was to look at everything with fresh, childlike eyes, with wonder, basically. Mm-hmm. And they found that, and then they had a control group who walked like we all walk, like to-do lists on our phone, worried about something. And they did it for 8 weeks, and they found the most amazing changes in the people who did what they called the awe walks, which were drop in, like I said, depression and in anxiety, and their inflammation markers went down. Now that's a big one. Inflammation, we've been seeing as a root of a lot of diseases. And the awe stayed. Like these people stayed with positive emotional markers and positive biological markers after the awe walk, after the 8-week period. So awe is powerful and lodges in you. And here's the thing. We live in a world of anti-awe devices. I mean, just like you said, like awe is open, and you feel not in control, whereas the phone is trying to tell you are in control. You feel powerful. You feel all powerful. Who wants to feel all powerful? That's stressful. Awe is, they call it a healthy sense of yourself. Ooh, so the other thing they did, and I always forget this, and then it's so exciting. The other thing that they did with the awe walkers and the walkers who were the control group, they said, hey, last minute, they decided to do this. Can you just take a selfie of yourself during each awe walk? And the beginning or walk, the awe walkers, in the very beginning, they took a selfie like we always do, up there, your face is taking up the whole thing, snap. But as the awe walks continued, the person's face got smaller and smaller, and the background got bigger and bigger, which is like this metaphor and also just instructive of their mental state, how they were feeling more a part of their environment. And they call it the small self. Like they had a sense of their real place in the universe almost, right? Yeah. We're not the center of the world. Like there's a lot going on. And the awe walker selfies showed that just being out in nature and looking at things with wonder, fresh, childlike eyes changed things.
Yes.
Sorry, I got excited.
I love that.
I love talking about that. It's so cool. So point being, you don't have to base jump. You don't have to go to the edge of the Grand Canyon or kayak the Grand Canyon. It'd be awesome if you did, but you can also just go on an awe walk.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think sometimes there are many of us have a hard time kind of getting out of our head or breaking this cycle of like, being on our phones or whatever the case may be. And many people kind of have a very logical mind, right? Of like, well, you don't know my situation and I can't this, or for someone who doesn't maybe have a positive outlook on life, Any advice for how they can start to shift that if they're kind of like, well, she doesn't understand. I mean, I get it, but what about me? And I went through this, or everyone has their own traumas or whatever the case may be. But to get out of this negative cycle and start to get into this positive cycle where we view the world as all, like some people are like, oh yeah, all, like, they're not even in this state where they can really be aware of the awe. Sometimes we need to kind of wake up.
I would say two things. I still say, like, without even trying to be awestruck or trying to change your mindset, if you simply pick up an activity in the outdoors, you don't have to be good at it. Just do it. It will change you profoundly just because of that activity. And it will, because it offers you community, novelty, physical health, purpose, and don't try to do any of those. It will come through that activity.
Yeah.
And it'll imbue you with a positive sense of your own aging journey. I just think there's no trying about it in terms of the actual change your negative. Just go get a physical activity. And again, I know people who might say, well, that's not, I don't like it out to do that. I don't like going outside. And I won't argue with that if you really don't. I think maybe there's other ways to find what I'm talking about. But I challenge you, because as human beings, I think it's very, very basic in us to be connected to the outdoors. You do not have to do something, like, again, you don't have to get in a sea kayak. You don't have to even go boogie boarding with the 70-year-olds in San Diego, but you can go on a walk.
Yeah.
And I know you will be changed.
So I like that. So you're not trying to teach us positive psychology or, change your mind through affirmations and visualizations. Just go out there and get outside and the change will come naturally.
Yeah. I mean, does that sound weird? Because
No,
it's
I like it.
over and over again. That's what I interviewed people of all some of the women that I interviewed had been outdoors all their life, but most of them picked it up late, and usually it was from some inflection point, maybe the death of a partner, maybe retirement, maybe physical illness, or physical, like the doctor told them to, or the COVID. And they don't go out there trying to become a better person, become positive, all these big, sort of very idealistic and kind of big goals. They just want a little change, like a change, or maybe a friend just asked them to do it and they want to hang out with their friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is something for you out there.
Yeah. I've heard of this. I don't know if it's in Japan, it's more common, but I've heard of this like forest bathing thing where they take people who are depressed and it's like incredible the results that they get through that. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, no, I looked at that too, because that's, again, under the rubric of nature itself is really good for our mental health as well as our psychological health and our physical health, because of all these effects that, that, like the tree chemicals, like the fact there's no harsh sounds and hard edges. And this is neurological. This isn't just like, oh, that loud sound bothers me. No, on a neurological level, we need that.
Mm,
And the low level anxiety that living in a world that moves fast and is loud and breaks things is low level hard on us. It really is.
yeah.
They have shown that people who go out into green spaces, and I can't remember the numbers, they are in my book, but for a certain amount of time each week, and it's not very much, they self-report anxiety and depression levels dropping meaningfully, as well as blood pressure and cortisol levels, sugar levels, all the things that are also linked to your mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. Just by, and I think it's good for people listening. There are some people who want to know, well, why, when I go outside, why does it help me more? And you mentioned a few of the things there, just kind of the sounds of nature versus hard, beeping of horns and stuff like that you might get in a city. We talked about sunlight being one of them. You mentioned plant chemicals. Um,
Also, the one that blows me away again is the fact that there's not a lot of hard edges in nature, and our retinal structure is such that we can really absorb that information
hmm,
easily. So on a very deeply, cellular neurological level, our brain isn't working as hard when we're outside to filter out, because our brain was made to like say danger, not danger, danger, not danger. And when we're in the city, or in an urban environment or a louder, more high energy environment, the brain is working really hard. Like, is that, red Fiat coming at you? Is that dangerous? There's so much information it's trying to give us or
hmm,
not give us, depending on how important it thinks it is. But that filtering process is anxiety producing on a level that we don't necessarily clock consciously. So going outside on a really in a meaningful way helps your mental health.
amazing, amazing. Um, you have some examples of some people who have kind of taken the plunge and at maybe at an older age, kind of starting getting more active. Do you have any cool stories there that you can share?
Yeah, let's see. Well, my own mom.
Nice.
My own mom really began going outside in her, later 40s. She had divorced my dad. My dad's amazing, but she sort of struck out on her own and started exploring new things. And when I was a kid, I didn't appreciate this for what it was. Eventually, she moved to a new town. She was in her 60s, early 60s, and she just wanted to meet people. And she, again, like thinks of herself as a pretty fearful person, not an adventurous person, and didn't grow up that way. Her mom was always cautioning her, and it's not ladylike. And so she found herself in this town where she didn't know anybody, but she had a bike. She had bought a bike. She hadn't ridden it that much, but she had a bike, and she thought, well, maybe I could meet people this way. I know how to bike. And so she went to this biking group of people about her age and older up until their 90s. They range from basically early 60s to 90s. And she started biking. And there was a sea change in her physically, but also confidence wise and personality wise. Like, she had always self described as not a social person. And here she was kind of organizing rides. And she said she loved biking because it wasn't like a cocktail party where, um, you had to do small talk. On a bike
Hmm.
ride, it's like, let's stop for lunch, turn left here. Like, and if you didn't really want to chat with somebody, you just biked away. So
Yeah.
it really fit her socially. And she began to love it. And she became, I wouldn't say a new person, but a person that we hadn't fully appreciated. And maybe she hadn't either, through this bike riding that she did. And she rode her bike. She would, I once went bike riding with her, and I write about this. And first of all, she creamed me on the hill.
Wow.
And secondly, she came up, I heard her coming before I saw her, and she was doing this weird breathing thing. She later told me it was Lance Armstrong breathing exercises technique or something, as she kind of whizzed by me on this hill. And I was, first of all, humiliated, but also really kind of psyched to see my mom just so nails. And she biked until she was almost 80.
Wow.
And then she found that she was kind of wobbly on her bike, and she thought, oh, it's because I'm too old. And she sort of gave up biking. She knew she could add tricycles to it if she needed to, and there were people that did that. She knew she could do a recumbent if she wanted to, or there were options in terms of balance, but she thought that's not as fun. And I've had 20 years of biking. I'm just going to let it slip away. And she said she wasn't sad about it, but it was so obvious how sad she was about it. And about a year later, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Oh no.
And so she kind of made her feel better, that she was like, okay, that's the reason that this was happening. It's not just me being, weak.
Yeah.
And she did other things. She still walks. But she walked, she'd be in her garden, but it never took the place. It was never as powerful as that cycling, those two cycling decades. And that it's kind of a sad story, but it's also an uplifting story because she picked it up at 60. And so she optimized 60, 70, all the way till 80 in ways that, so many of us don't. And the cool thing about my mom is that I didn't realize this, but she was my positive messaging uh, about aging. Because when I started to age, I didn't have the same attitude that my friends did. I don't know that I realized it openly, but I had seen my mom blossom in her 60s onward. And as my friends were approaching, 55, 60s, they were just groaning and moaning about it. And I was like, oh, I don't really feel like that. I feel like it's going to be kind of cool. But again, weighed down by the messaging, I did go on this quest to find out the science and research behind it so that I could be sure.
Yeah.
But I'm really grateful to my mom because she allowed me to absorb a lot of positive messaging about my own aging.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is a great gift. I mean, when you see a parent and you see them in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, or up to 80, riding a bike, and then what's your excuse, right?
Yeah.
I think that's incredible. And so, being outdoors, maybe we can kind of give people. We've given a bunch of examples. Obviously, that walking and hiking is an easy one. If you have an ocean or a body of water near you that you can go to, that's another great one. Swimming and all that.
Splash. But you don't have to swim. You just have to
Yeah.
splash around. You can boogie board. The wave chasers in San Diego, they don't they most of them don't boogie board the actual wave face. In fact, when I went there, I was like, I mean, I'm a bad surfer, but I'm still a surfer. And I was like, I don't want to boogie board. That sounds boring. And sure enough, they were just coming in on the whitewater. And I was like, huh. But then get in with them, and it's so freaking fun
Yeah.
because everyone's having so much fun and it's so physical because you're getting tumbled and it's cold water. And yeah, it was amazing. And I got schooled a lot as someone who has been adventuring a long time. There were some aspects that I was like, I don't really think that's an adventure, or that could be life changing, but I need to cover it anyway. So bird watching was a great example. I
Yeah.
did go into bird. I'd never bird watched. I am a pilot, so I was intrigued by birds in flight, but I'd never really taken some time to kind of stare and listen. But when I went bird watching, I realized, oh, this is an adventure because there was the quest to find the birds. There was the anticipation, like, oh, did I hear something? And then there was the exhilaration when you found the bird. And then, of course, there was the physical activity of just being outside and walking, or hardly walking. You don't have to walk that far. So
I like this distinction here because a lot of people, I mean, myself, I'll just say myself, when I think about, yeah, I got to get, I got to get outside and get in the water. I think like, I got to like do something, but you could just watch birds. You could just go for a walk and watch birds and still get incredible benefits from this.
incredible. And I saw it time and again, people upending their expectations of themselves and how powerful that is just by going outside with a new activity. I want to add something that novelty is really, so one of the things that we will all worry about as we age is our memory and our brains. And so novelty is really important to introduce into our life. And I think you were touched on this earlier, like, oh, I'm too old for that. I'm too old for this. I hear that a lot. People not wanting to pick up something because they're supposedly too old for it. Old dogs can't learn new tricks. But in fact, our brain keeps growing all the way pretty much until we die. If there's some problems in our brain, it's trying to divert around it to create new neural pathways. And you want to keep your brain still active and firing. And learning something new is one of the best ways to keep your brain super on it, thriving. And so going outside and learning something new is, as small as it might be, learning how to bird watch, learning how to boogie board, is going to have incredible benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the opposite of sitting at home on the couch watching the news, going outside, getting new experiences. Because, yeah, I mean, I've seen, as my father unfortunately had some strokes a few years back, and he's kind of losing mobility more and more each year. And as he kind of just, especially in the winter times, which is, by the way, another thing I realized recently that I've been taking for granted, that I live in Las Vegas and get sun kind of pretty much all year round. When I went to the East Coast over the holiday break, it was like, oh wow, there's not a whole lot of sunlight here in the winter, so it's something I really took for granted that I'm really continuing to prioritize now. But with him in the wintertime, especially, just sitting inside and watching TV all day because he's not very mobile anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have really seen a deterioration in his brain as that happens, and he's not as social, right? He's not going out and playing tennis and then chatting with his tennis partners for a half hour after the game, and you kind of just really see that, and kind of even in Japan where kind of the older generation is more still a part of the family, and everyone kind of will tend to live together for a longer period of time, and they have that social interaction, and they're looked up to, whereas our culture is maybe a little bit different. And yeah, you can kind of see these differences and how powerful it is. So I really am grateful for this conversation. I hope it really opened up a lot of eyes. I hope this podcast can be the inspiration for many listeners, to similar to how your mom was, an inspiration for you. Maybe people listening now can get inspired and kind of change the way they think about things. And don't worry about how, just go out there and do something outside, and you'll see.
Baby steps, baby
Yeah.
steps. There's no need to, again, learn how to skydive or want to jump out of a plane. You don't have to do that. Just a baby step. Say yes to someone who even just says, oh, do you want to come outside and look at this little bird? I
Right.
mean, and the other thing that was interesting to me is that a lot of the women that I interviewed, and again, this is all relevant to men too, is they often did it alone because they didn't have a community, because they weren't outdoors people who did outdoor things. So they would simply use the internet. I mean, one of the women, she would just type in, when she kind of went on little road trips, she'd type in something fun to do here, question mark, and how this list came up. And other people, one woman that I talked to after her husband died and she knew she had to get out and socialize, she used meetups. So, I mean, just because you're on the older side doesn't mean you can't try to use what the internet can offer. Or if you have a young friend, ask them to help you with that, because there are opportunities at your church, at your library, at your local rec center, to do things, even if you don't know anybody. So baby steps.
That's right. Caroline, this has been amazing. I think it's been very inspirational for many of our listeners, and I think they get the point. They got to get outdoors and do something, anything. Look at a bird. I love this advice. Where can people follow you, find you, get your book?
The book is Tough Broad. The paperback looks a little different than the hardback. They like to change it around. You can get the book at your local independent bookstore. You can ask them. It's been out a little while, so you can just ask them to order it, or it's on any of the book sites. I can be found on Instagram at Caroline MB Paul, and I'm on Facebook as well. I'm pretty easy to find. I have a website, carolinepaul.com, and I have a new book coming out in February. So come up to me at a reading and say hi.
Amazing. Caroline, this has been great, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Thanks to Laura. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean a lot to me if you would forward this episode along to any friends, family members, anyone that you think that would get value out of it and learn something important. The mission at Peak Performance is to help people prioritize and transform their health. And so if you think someone will get value, please, please, please do forward this episode along to them. Also, if you could please rate and review and subscribe on whatever podcast player you are listening to this on, we would greatly appreciate that as well. It means a lot. And I want to tell you about a couple of new products that we just released. You can get 20% off your first order at buypeakperformance.com. That's BUY buypeakperformance.com. We just released a brand new grass-fed beef protein isolate. This is my favorite new protein powder because it's great for muscle building and recovering and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't give the stomach discomfort and gas that a lot of people get from different types of proteins like whey protein. Some types of plant proteins can do the same as well. It seems to be really, really easy on the stomach while still giving all the great benefits of muscle building and everything else that you want from taking in adequate protein. So check out our new beef protein isolate. We have it in unflavored, which I actually mix and blend with my morning coffee every morning. We have a vanilla and we have a chocolate. You can buy it on Amazon, but again, you also do get 20% off your first order at buypeakperformance.com, B-U-Y, peakperformance.com. We've also recently released organic mushroom coffee. We have these in Keurig compatible K-cup coffee pods. We have organic mushroom coffee with lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, turkey tail, and chaga mushrooms blended with the high altitude organic coffee that we've been using and that we've been famous for years. So that's been a big hit, that one as well. You can get on our website or Amazon, any of our products. And of course, we're always famous for our organic green superfood powder that has almost 5,000 reviews on Amazon with a very high star rating. We're known as the best tasting USDA certified organic green superfood powder with over 25 plus organic ingredients. Again, we also have the organic red superfood powder. We still, of course, have the organic plant protein for those who do prefer the plant protein, but I'm really excited about this new beef protein isolate and all of our other products. We do have over 100 products, so just check us out if you type in Peak Performance Supplements on Amazon or if you go to buypeakperformance.com. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.